The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig-Zag Man, in Alameda, California, on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I am blessed to talk to some of the most interesting people in the world on a regular basis, and no exception today, my old bud, Howie Gordon, is on the line, and you have a treat for me and the audience. Howie, take it away.
Hi, folks. Good to be back with you guys again. Today I'm going to perform a little piece for you called The Lioness and the Rabbit. I didn't want to do that first sex scene on the first day. I wanted more time on the set to get used to things again. I wanted more time to get to know Seika, the queen of the industry. I was overruled. I hadn't been on a movie set in 9 months. That was a long time. We started shooting that day at 1:30 in the afternoon. It was Friday, August 12th. It was a hot, hot day in Bob Fosse's old San Francisco soundstage, and things were not going well. We were just going to do a couple of dialogue scenes before the sex, but we managed to keep screwing them up. When the actors were good, the cameras were bad. Throw in a mix of sound problems, lighting problems, and Sam, the director, just not being happy with the take problems, and people were getting downright cranky. Next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock at night, and we had to stop farting around. They had to relight the set, and we had to do our big sex scene. Take a breath. Oy. I was nervous. These were performance jitters. Did I tell you that I was nervous? I was nervous. Seika was Secretariat. This was the Kentucky Derby. And the sad truth was, I was not ready to ride her in this race. I thought I was prepared. I had trained hard. I knew all my lines. My body was beautiful. I even had my fingernails manicured. I'd heard that Seika had this thing about guys with dirty fingernails. Mine were all clean, trimmed, and pretty. I hadn't had an orgasm in 4 days. I should have been able to fuck a Volkswagen. But you know what? Lust was a feeling that had first wavered when my wife and I got pregnant, and then vanished completely during all the 3 a.m. feedings. And now we were pregnant again. I hadn't had sex on camera in 9 months, and the last time had been that disastrous epic with Shauna Grant in Svetlana's movie where I'd had a premature ejaculation. Oy, I was not eager for this erotic combat. I had no confidence. I felt like Samson after the haircut. I was not ready for another trial by ordeal. This was like beginning the baseball season with a Game 7 in the World Series. Seika was the American League champ. I was supposed to be the National League champ. This was supposed to be a big sex scene in a big movie. They were paying me a lot of money. I was supposed to be a star. I was trying to run here with the big dogs like Jamie Gillis and John Leslie. I was supposed to know how to do this. I was supposed to go up there to home plate and get a big clutch hit with men on base. I was being asked to have sex with Seika. Good God, she was this amazing lioness. You want to know what the problem was? I'll tell you what the problem was. It was now showtime, and when I rolled the dice, I was hoping to be Studley Do-Right, or Randy Cowboy, or Billy the Boner. And what did I come up with? I was Bunny Gardenia. You ever been Bunny Gardenia? He was a fucking rabbit. The sex scene was going to be The Lioness and the Rabbit. Woe was me. I did not know what to do. I was too revved up. Is this too much information? Can you stand to know this about a man? I needed to calm down. I needed a game changer. Okay, don't tell anybody. I took a half a Valium. I should have talked to somebody. I should have talked to Seika or Sam the director or even called my wife, but I didn't. I mean, who the fuck wants to hear the cowboy sing a song of fear? Asshole, stupid, fuck, shit, piss. The Valium was a terrible idea. It didn't relax me at all. It stung me. It was like getting hit in the head with a hammer. I got nauseated and dizzy. It was hot. It was so hot. It was hard for me to walk. I had to lie down. I had to realize that taking that Valium had rendered me even less capable than I was before I took it. Dumb, dumb, dumb. I only wanted to lie down and not be hot anymore. I didn't want to have to do anything. For the moment, forget about how I got here, but the idea that I was waiting to do a sex scene was just plain cruel. To me, to Seika, to the director, to the whole damn movie. Ladies and gentlemen, I fucked up. I tried sleeping. I was the runaway bunny. I couldn't fall asleep, but I tried to rest myself, calm myself down. I tried contacting my penis. Hello, Dick. Anybody home? Somebody was in there, but they were not answering the front door. They were upstairs and they were groggy. I worried. I had to wake them up. I ate a little sugar, I figured. Get some quick energy. I had a piece of wretched chocolate cake and some apple juice. Oi. If Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra had been invented by then, I would have thrown them all together in a blender and made myself a sexual smoothie. Fear and stupidity can make for dangerous allies. Probably would have ended up in the hospital. Then the call came to get me into makeup. It was put up or shut up. Suzanne, the makeup lady, began to work on me. After a while, I told her I was feeling very, very far away and nauseated. I was too embarrassed to mention the Valium, but I did tell her that I didn't know if I could do the scene. Susan, very nurse-like, said, "Well, that doesn't sound like you." And she put a cold compress on my neck and shoulders. Seika came by. I told her that I was not in such great shape. I was apologetic. Next thing I knew, Sam, the director, was hovering. I suggested that he might want to have a contingency plan ready to shoot something else because I didn't know if I could make it. He told me to let him know as soon as I could tell. The next thing I knew, Seika and I were in bed. We were kissing. I was scared. I was listening to a lot of different radio broadcasts going off in my own head. I liked Seika, though. I thought she was my buddy. You know, all these years later, it's apparent to me that I was so self-absorbed in my own internal dilemmas at that point that I had absolutely no idea what Seika was going through when we shot this scene. I'm going to ask her to please tell her side of this story. If she's willing, I promise that I'll put it in here right after mine. So we were kissing, and I didn't know if they were filming us or not. The scene was supposed to have started with some dialogue, but we never did it. We were just kissing. Then we touched each other's genitals a bit. Actually, we rubbed our legs over each other's private parts. She was wearing a matching blue bra and panties. I had on my birthday suit, augmented by some body makeup. Hey! I started getting aroused. Hello, erection! I definitely viewed this as a gift from God and quickly pulled down her underpants for whatever might be happening next. I wanted to finger her. She was all so brand new to me that I felt like I was wearing big, thick mittens. I wasn't sure where to touch her or how. I was playing with a warped deck. And in that confusion, while I fumbled with this new piece of woman flesh, I lost what little arousal that had come to pass. Boy, when my dick shriveled, I had a conversation with myself that began with, uh-oh, and continued on with me wondering if and how my erection was ever going to be coming back. All this happened while I was fumbling to be pleasuring her female parts with my left hand. You know, sometimes you can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't think I looked her in the eye very much. Somehow, after a bit, I found myself sucking her vulva. Yes, I was a vulva sucker. Now, there's a term you don't hear all the time. Cocksuckers are everywhere, even on Showtime and HBO. But I don't care how much cable you watch, you're not likely to hear too much about vulva suckers. Not even on the L word. Muff divers, maybe, but not too many vulva suckers. Alas, I digress. I found myself sucking her vulva. All of it. Anything. I was fishing for her response and looking hard. I was trying not to look or to lick too hard, but just be soft and find something that I could feel that she really liked. I'm working here. Man, I was nibbling and nervous. I had no idea what the cameras were doing, and it seemed like 6 months since I last heard from the director. After maybe 20 minutes more of me sucking her, my dick still wasn't hard, and I didn't know nothing. I imagined they were sick of this position, but were either being too shy or too nice to say anything. When I added my fingers to the pussy licking, I discovered the hard stubble of my beard. Oh, man, it had been 12 hours since my last shave. Oh, my God, I thought, I've been torturing this poor woman with sandpaper chin, and she's either been too shy or too nice to say anything. I covered the stubble with my hand and tried to use only my tongue, my lips, and my teeth as the oral sex continued. Seika later told me that she'd had an orgasm during this time. For vanity's sake, I wanted to believe her, but I was all 12 of Santa's reindeer when we shot this scene, and I had no idea what was real. Okay, I knew we had to change positions. Even if nobody was saying anything, I still knew it. So I came up her body, and we fell into another kiss. By now, I should have been hard, I should have been fucking her, and I wasn't, and we weren't. I started fingering her again. You know, one improvises and waits for the gods to decide. I wanted her to touch me back. She did, with a feathery kind of touch. It wasn't strong enough. I wanted her to squeeze me hard, yank me, pull me. She did me one better. She journeyed down my body and took my cock in her mouth. Well, hallelujah. I felt breath come into my body, like I hadn't been breathing at all. Still, I didn't harden right away, and I fought the fear of knowing that. I tried to stop panic. Breathe. The wet warmth on my dick was good. I knew that if this sex scene was going to happen at all, this was going to be my best shot. I remembered my wife's advice from the early days. Stick to what feels good. I began to move my hips. There was more breath. Deeper breath. I pumped, she sucked. Trickle. A trickle of pleasure was breaking through the panic. I remembered the word yes. Seika, God bless her, she worked me. It was slow going, but she worked me just fine. Brick by brick, she dutifully built that boner. The moment of truth was soon at hand. Would my erection survive the withdrawal from her mouth and remain hard enough to enter her vagina? That was the question. It was like a football play. Break the huddle, rush up to the line of scrimmage, then hike the ball. I made it. I was in. Now pump, you motherfucker. Pump for all your life. All systems were go. Houston, we have liftoff. Ride 'em, cowboy. Bunny Geranium was in the saddle. I'm an old cowhand on the Rio Grande. Seika was a thoroughbred. Wow. It was a sprint. The ride was short and sweet. They got enough footage, and that was that. The rest of it was for us. The cum shot was going to be inside. This was a very un-porn-like miracle. I always hated pulling out and squirting for the cameras. I thought it was a crime against man, woman, God, nature, and common sense. We weren't going to do that today. The cum shot was going to be inside Seika, and I saw the finish line. The cameras were probably on our faces when I came. I hope we had the good sense not to be acting. Right afterwards, I whispered in Seika's ear that we should redo this whole scene tomorrow. I was apologetic. I thought the scene was nothing. Chaotic, bizarre, out to lunch. But no, people were saying fine. Seika and I were dripping with sweat. They gave us towels. I didn't know. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to use that scene. I was astonished. The camera people said they had all kinds of coverage. They got coverage? Where was I? I got nuts. I thought that Seika was surprised at how loony I was. That was it. Ricky, the production manager, told me it was a wrap. He said I could come back tomorrow to finish the dialogue scene that we didn't get to today. I was going to get an extra day's worth of work out of this. Holy fuck, that was great. He told me to go home and just relax. Now, I know I promised you a long time ago in this book of mine that I wouldn't take you on any more long, drawn-out tales of my misadventures with my dick. But frankly, I don't see how this one could have been avoided. And now you've heard my side of this story. Here's what Seika had to say. I have to tell you what I remember about that whole thing. I knew that I was making some big bucks for doing the movie in the first place, and I pretty much had control over most everything. That being said, I wanted the people to be people I really liked and respected. I wanted them to be paid very, very well and to be treated like actors and not livestock. Now that you know that, you know why Howie was playing the lead male role. I was and still am just crazy about Howie. We were friends then and we are still friends to this day. Howie, I love you, my darling, sweet friend. Now about that day, I could tell that Howie was very nervous as he was acting a bit strange, but not knowing how he normally acted before a sex scene, I didn't want to say anything to him because, as we all know, all a woman has to do is say one wrong word and that dick is going to run away and hide, and he ain't coming out again till he knows that the coast is clear. So I just watched and waited and watched and waited. We all watched and waited for a long time that day. It was not only because of Howie. Doing any kind of movies, a lot like being in the Army. Hurry up and wait. So eventually it was time and we were in bed kissing, sucking and being sucked. I thought to myself while Howie was going down there, in the throes of the war he was going through that I was unaware of, I thought, holy crap, that boy sure knows what he's doing. Howie, I don't know if I ever told you this, but you sure eat some good pussy. Back to that, I was getting wet and sweaty when I noticed that he had a 12 to 14-hour beard. I have to tell you, that's what put me over the top. It was very tender and very rough at the same time. A very delicate tightrope to walk. And Mr. Gordon was the master. That was what made me want to give him some of that pleasure for himself. So I slid down, took his manhood into my mouth, gently sucking, licking, and tonguing his lovely unit. The next thing I remember, he was inside of me and I was in heaven. We were sweating, dripping from almost every orifice. Then as quickly as it seemed to happen, it was over. We were just there in an orgasmic heap, basking in the afterglow of one hell of a roll in the sheets. It was not until much later that I knew of the pure hell that Howie had been going through. You know, looking back on it, Howie's pretty much like that with most things in his life. There are a few men in this world that have their big head control what happens with the little head. Howie's one of those men. And the man I've been with for some 10 years now is the same way. So Howie, you see, after all, you were and are the kind of man I have always looked for, a man who knows how to use his head. I love you, Seika.
Wow. How cool. I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to be in porn. Anybody listening out there, you don't have to be in porn to see the analogy from professional sex to just recreational sex. If you're in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship, if it's a first time with the woman, or man, if it's the second time, if it's even, you go through that. It's all the head. It's the big head controlling it, and wow, that really puts sexual freedom into context, because first of all, just participating makes it a wonderful thing, and identifying with what a professional has to go through was a real big education for me. This has been a terrific 10 minutes. Howie, is this an excerpt from your book?
Yes, this is one of the many stories in a book called Hindsight, True Love and Mischief in the Golden Age of Porn. And if your readers are interested, I'm the only way you can get a copy, because mainstream bookstores won't even touch it. You have to go to my website, www.hindsightbook.com, to order a copy, and I'd love to send you one.
I hope 1 million people send you notice and what have you.
From your lips to God's ears.
She's not listening to a lot of things these days. So if we can wake the bitch up.
I think she's taking a lot of heat for Donald Trump. she's on vacation.
I know. If ever the question arises, the theological question, is God dead? Yeah.
He's on life support right now.
Right. The gathering the family as we speak. They're making those phone calls. Better come quick.
If you can. Good luck.
Yes. Or if you can't, which is another thing. See, it's either you can or you can't too soon. So
yeah.
you have to juggle it, and to hear that, I'm not in awe of your professional career much, but you put your pants on one leg at a time, and to keep that in perspective for we amateurs, that you as a professional are no less immune from things taking over than we are. And
well, here I entered the world of irony, because most of my book, for those who go ahead and read it, will discover that it's essentially a love story between my wife and I. My wife was trained as a sex therapist in Masters and Johnson's sex therapy techniques before I ever got in the business. And when I would come home, well, let me just say this. Before I got into the business, I didn't have any problems that I knew of that with arousal and fucking. It just sort of happened, and it was working. When I got into the business, I had them all. I had everything. Premature ejaculation, check. Ejaculatory incompetence, check.
That's called paralysis by analysis.
That's good. That's good. Well, that's another thing, too. I had a lot of what I call the Hamlet effect. Because at the time you're supposed to be having sex, if you're sitting in your head wondering if you're doing the right thing, you got to get yourself out of the way of your body. Your body knows exactly what to do. And when you get in the way, it just mucks things up. But I had this one moment where I had to get aroused, and there was no connection. Everything I say leads to another 10 digressions. The very first insight I ever had was, being in a porn movie, I'm thinking, well, I don't care if you watch me fuck. Go ahead. I'm getting laid here. This is great. The camera's over there, and you're fucking. So watch away. Who gives a shit? That's not what being in the movie's like. Being in the movie is like looking directly into the camera and masturbating yourself. Now, if you told me that I was going to be jerking off in front of 30 people, and most of them were men, I wouldn't have been within 500 miles of the set. I would never do that, because masturbation to me was something that happened behind a locked door, period. In some ways, it was a failure because it began with the fact that I didn't have a partner. And I was doing this anyway because I wanted the pleasure. So the learning curve was enormous for me, because sometimes you would be partnered with someone who didn't want to be with you at all. But the director is playing God and putting people, the blonde and the brunette, they put them together and you guys be together. It's random, and they're all psychologists like Vinny and Arnie from Jersey. Hey, come here. You work with him or you work with him. You guys do a good scene. You look good together. Yeah, go ahead. So it goes on, and that's when I said in the piece about Seika, I said kind of an aside to the audience, saying to the real listeners, can you stand to hear this from a man? That this is what really goes on in our heads, that some of us, as we go through this, because this is stuff that we don't talk about unless we have to. And the really climactic.
It just doesn't go through professionals' head. It goes through.
No, I'm talking about us.
Head.
All sex.
Yes.
Everybody.
And
all together.
The interesting and ironic part, you had no idea what was going through Seika's head. And it turned out she was enjoying it much more than you thought.
Right.
You thought the whole thing was a fizz, as it were, and people were coming up to you and going, nice job, come back tomorrow, get an extra day's pay. Yeah. And that it puts to mind that our minds imagine things. Why couldn't you have imagined, wow, it was great? And had you known, you would have, looking back, had you known what these people were thinking, it was great. you were the
Well, it
last.
certainly rings the bell for the need for communication, because when one is stuck in fear and doubt, to be playing those tapes over and over in your head and not have any idea who your partner is, or hiding those things from your partner, keeps you from being present to the situation completely. And you need to do confession. One needs to do confession there, and also one needs to pay attention to, like, where are you, my dear? What's going on for you? And when you start trading that stuff, that's intercourse. That's the social intercourse that precedes the sexual intercourse. It's the giving and the taking, and then you have a chance to meet, and the meat has a chance to function, to play with words a little bit.
Terrific. I would like to invite your partner, your wife, on this show, and perhaps you can chat, and I could talk with both of you sometime.
Well, I'll relate. She might be interested. Basically, she has made a very conscious decision, going back many years now, to not be Mrs. Pacheco in public, because her profession as a therapist is built on the premise that her private life is not on the floor. She does not share any aspects of her private life with her clients.
She could be Mrs. Gordon on this one. Mr. Gordon is not just a profession. He's a real human being. So,
well, she knows that. But what I'm saying to you is that she doesn't like the idea. She protects her identity as a therapist, because it makes her the way she practices therapy, it diminishes her capacity to deliver quality therapy when she becomes the story. So she's always she's turned me down all the time about that. And when I would do personal appearances, and I've done a fair share of them, what does your wife think about this? What does your wife think about this? There was never any answer I could ever give that wouldn't sound like a bunch of self-serving bullshit. And so I would ask her, if you're not going to appear with me on these things and answer these questions, would you at least put it in writing? And then you don't have to do these things. And she does. She has done that for me. She's written 2 sections of my book, which are the 2 best sections in the book, because they really humanize me. The assumptions that are automatically made by any man participating in the world of porn are not flattering. And in many cases, that description is well earned, but in other cases, it's completely wrong. As I said, I was married the whole time, and it was my marriage that enabled me to continue in this business, because my wife essentially taught me how to function under stress. There was one moment I was working with somebody, and I started telling you the story and then digressed. I wasn't able to get aroused, and I need to take a time out from the girl, go off by myself, and get myself aroused. And I'm laying there by myself, and I'm going through my pornographic pictures, and none of them are working, and I start thinking about my wife. And I start to get hard. And at that point, I heard God laughing. Because I had got into this business so that I could have one of all of them. I wanted a chocolate one, and an acrobat, and a football lady, and I wanted everything. Everything there was to have, I wanted to have. And when they were laying there with their legs spread, and I'm stuck. I'm having to go back to have sexual fantasies of my wife to be able to function. And that's when I heard God laughing. And that was one of the finer moments of my life.
Howie, terrific show. I want you to just ask you what's your wife's first name?
Well, she uses the name Carly when asked to be identified.
Okay, ask Carly if she would. If she doesn't, I totally understand. It would be our loss, me and the audience. But she has raised a terrific boy.
Well, I'll tell you what. If she decides she doesn't want to go on, one thing I can do is present the writing that she's done about this stuff. I can perform her
beautiful.
Side. I know the lines very well.
That would be terrific, and you wouldn't have to use an up.
Yeah.
Because I know about ups in this here world. Thank you, Howie.
My pleasure,
appreciate
sir.
it. I'm glad you're recuperating, and your eyes are getting better.
Everything's working.
Beautiful. Keep that. Everything is all inclusive, so I know things are good with you.
Yeah.
All right, Howie. We'll talk soon.
Happy All-Star.
Happy, yes. We got the All-Star game where we see the best of the best, and that's always fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Ralph Zig Tyko, Comfortably Zoned on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Adios.
Bye-bye.